Welcome to the July 1st virtual reading. And this month we have a special treat of an ekphrastic group of features, two of whom collaborated on a book together a few years ago. So each of them will be sharing screens as well as poetry and perhaps short fiction, we don't know. And I'm looking forward to hearing from them because I enjoy their work so much. Our first reader today, okay, let me put up this, is Marjorie Maddox. She's a professor of English at Lock Haven University and has published 13 collections of poetry, including Transplant, Transport, Transubstantiation, Begin with a Question, and the ekphrastic collaboration with Karen Elias, Heart Speaks is Spoken For. She's also published the story collection, What She Was Saying. Please mute yourself if you haven't already. And if you're not, Marjorie. 4 children's and YA books, including the NCT notable book, Inside Out, Poems on Writing and Reading Poems with Insider Exercises. Commonwealth, Contemporary Poets on Pennsylvania, which she is the co-editor. In the Museum of My Daughter's Mind, an ekphrastic collection based on paintings by her daughter, Anna Lee Hafer, and other artists, which is forthcoming on Shanty Arts. So take it away.
Thank
Marjorie.
you. Thank you so much, Robbie. And as we said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well. I'm excited to read with both Brent and Lorette today. I had 2 books come out this year, and so I'm going to give you a little tidbit of those and also a tidbit of the forthcoming ekphrastic book. So Karen Elias and I, this is the book here, collaborated on this ekphrastic collection, and it started with us meeting at an art museum and being kind of matched up. Well, we'd known each other for a while, but she was given one of my poems, I was given one of her photographs, and she had been doing a lot of photographs based on a cracked heart-shaped stone that she found in Maine, and I had been writing a lot. I have an entire book about my father's unsuccessful heart transplant. So this is the first image that she created. My father received his heart during the blizzard of '93 in Ohio. And you can see how she has this map of Ohio in the background, and then this kind of icy road in the front. So I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to just flip through and show you some of her images to give you a sense of the book. And this came out from Shanty Arts. And this is the cover photograph, which she had called Heart Speaks is Spoken For. And all of these images and poems speak to each other. Sometimes the photograph came first, and I wrote a poem to go with it. And sometimes the poem came first, and she took a photograph. So this is a poem that I wrote in response to this photograph. And to me, this photograph seemed very kind of hopeful, as if this heart is emerging and going out into the world again. So I was reading an article about how often people who receive donor organs take on the musical taste, the characteristics, the personality traits, the dietary likes of the person who donated the organ. Transplanted. Though they'd never met, the man with the dead man's heart inside him dreamed his donor's face, limbs, lungs, sung in his sleep the dead man's favorite song in the deep baritone voice that wasn't his own, but his, the one not known or seen or heard, except in night's deep cradle of sleep, this stranger's metronome of a heart humming behind ribs that no longer felt like his, beautiful fence for an organ lifted from someone else's afterlife. Even waking, the new old man and his heart now know nothing of old boundaries, the ones composed by the living. Instead, in bright, silent daylight, he takes his first tentative beat toward love. And then just show you some other images that she has. So quite a range of topics and perspectives. And then this one I wrote after the pandemic started, and Karen took this photograph, and I love how she has these two heart-shaped stones both together. Think of all that connects us with the similar experiences that some of us have undergone, but also the sense of isolation, quarantine. Apart inside, together they stare not at each other, but at the worn world beyond arm's reach. There, the child alone, hopscotching away her worries. And there, the single blue jay dotting the drab day with color. What is no more and what is still keeps moving through the familiar view. Remember, one laughs or sighs, turning again toward the other, together inside. And another one on the pandemic. And Karen, the first photographs that she took of this heart series were 3 poems, all called Morning Song for the Earth. In addition to being a writer and a photographer and a former English professor, she is an environmental activist. So here is one of those poems. Morning Song for the Earth. Here the stone heart waits for the tug of tide, the undertow of pole, the grainy tabula rasa of mind, lapped clean of conscience, or not. Even now, seaweeds entwine, brittle entanglements rot in the sun. The dying snare the dead, such rocky shores. Each dawn, the gulls call their crescendo of shriek, capsized days breaking into dirge, the cracked and soulful, as lonely as a sad ballad of loss, swooping low, then rising in morning's daily obeyed of hope. Such deceptive beauty, elegy for the earth. And I wanted to add, I'm really grateful to Lorette for not only writing a wonderful blurb for the book, but also including a number of the poems from the book in her online journal, The Ekphrastic Review. Then I had a second book come out the day after this one did, called Begin with a Question. And it's a very different kind of book, a book that really struggles with a lot of issues. Well, I think all poetry, all literature struggles with issues, but questions the problem of evil, but also addresses the issue of hope too. And one of the things that I love about poetry and is its ability to help us empathize with others, to help us understand those who are both like and those who are not like us. So I was looking at one of Michelangelo's Pietas and thinking of, here's Mary holding the dead Christ, thinking about this grief of losing a child and the grief of some of my friends who have lost a child. And then I started thinking about the biblical Eve and how she had not only lost a son, but lost a son because he was murdered by his brother. So this is called Pre-Pietà. Long before Golgotha, it's just this one mother collapsed, just Eve weeping in Cain's rocky field, haggard, alone, except for the body she cradles limp in her grieving arms. It's worse than Eden repeated. She chose the tree, passed the seed of her will to the babe who cooed and grew into the man, aiming this rock at his brother. This bloody rock she cannot touch. No sacrificial lamb, but flesh of her flesh, her youngest, her meadow boy, here across her lap. And now his sheep have found them, bunching up without their able, in this cursed field crowding in. She fears them, she loves them, their thick wool brushing against her shoulder, her weeping, their bleeding. And that book also contains a poem about Bruegel's Fall of Icarus. And then I'm just going to give you two short poems that are kind of teasers for In the Museum of My Daughter's Mind, which is, as Robbie said, is based on 18 paintings by my daughter, but also work by, again, Karen Elias, Greg Mort, Margaret Munchlosh, and a number of other outstanding artists. So this is based on her painting Arc. Ladders to below, above to, turn off the faucet to, weeping to, turn on the spigot to, here now to, unleash the liquid to, water to, weary to, whiplash to, swirl in the iris of horizon to, witness the wet of windswept to, hide in the eye of reject to, float in the drowning of hopeless to, breathe in the rattling of broken to, gasp with the mouth of ocean to, curl with the swish of sudden to, gulp with the whir of twisters to, swallow with the salt of senseless to, blur with the vision of serpents to, spew with the sputum of whales to, reek with the regurgitation of Jonah to, sink in the rise of remorse to, know with the blind eye of Noah to, soar on the dry sky with dove to, circle the submersion of world to, flutter and hover to, dive and discover to, finally land. And I'll end with this one. My daughter was telling me about a young student that she had who got reprimanded by someone else for asking questions during a lesson plan. The letter E. Don't distract me with questions, though extraneous detours that topple learning. E and only E is today's lesson. The enemy of schedules is curiosity, omissions necessary for well-paced delivery. We yearn for no distractions. Don't ask me questions, time-wasting, silly digressions of how and why. Pay attention. Our concern is E and only E. Today's lesson is letter 5. Your inquisitive obsessions are enemies of order. Don't ruin class by distracting me with questions. Creativity's the one transgression I won't allow. Sit still, don't squirm. E and only E is today's lesson. Up next, the letter F, natural progression of learning. Quiet, it's not your turn to talk. Don't distract me with questions. E and only E is today's lesson. And of course, I hope that all of us as writers and artists do not take that advice. Thank you very much.
Done already? Goodness, that just went by in a flash, didn't it? Well, our next reader, let me put up the intro so I can read it. It's very short. Brent Terry is the author of the novel, The Body Electric, and 4 collections of poetry. He writes, runs, and teaches in Wilmanic, Connecticut. Did I pronounce that correctly? Okay, you can unmute yourself now, Brent, and you should be able to share your screen. And since some of the things you share are also going to include Lorette, I will also put her up as a co-host.
All right, we ready to go? Can you hear me? Okay. The poems I'm going to read are all part of a collaboration with Lorette. So I'll be sharing my screen and showing you her work that either the poems respond to or work of hers that respond to the poems. They're all 12 by 12 inch squares. And we've done 20 some of these so far, and we're hoping they turn out to be a nice album cover size and shaped art book. So I'm going to start by just showing you the painting that the poem's about. This one, the painting's called The Yellow Car. The poem is called Prom. And this one, the painting came first. And I think this is it. This is very small. Hopefully.
Push share screen.
Share
And-
screen. Oh, yeah,
and you
share
should
screen.
And
Did
you should
that. And then
see,
this file should be.
you
right.
have to open the file first so that it's among your desktop
Okay,
images.
sorry about that. I have the. Okay,
So now choose the correct image, the correct desktop image, and click on it.
there we go. All right.
We
Can
can't
you see that
it.
now?
No.
Okay.
So open the image
Okay, the image I
and
have.
minimize it. Minimize it. Now push share screen and you'll see a bunch of open desktop screens. Choose the one with the image in it.
And I don't see the one with the image. Sorry.
Anybody
I
who
don't think that
has-
will work with the image minimized. It has to be open.
Okay, so I can do that.
It works for me.
All right. And you know what? I'm going to do something. What I'm going to do is I have the image here and I'm
I
just
can
going
share
to,
it, Brent. Sorry to interrupt, but I can share it.
okay. So the first one's a yellow car. Okay.
Does that
And
work?
I can see it. All right. And the poem is called Prom. By the third time I burst into flames, my date had become adept with the extinguisher. Untroubled was she by the arpeggios of foam, the retardant lavender fog. Strapless and purple with polka dots, she was beset by rum and giggles. The cornfield scrolled past, coughed up a strange new alphabet, dank lingo from which we composed post-punk odes to famous firebugs. Our high-speed chase choreographed by the screeching of nighthawks, the dumbstruck bunnies twitching in the brush by the ditch. Sunset outbursts hailed upwards like Billy Idol, snarled their garbled Weltschmerz from behind the big-ass clouds. Lightning strafed the cornrows, and we were overcome by petrichor and unearned nostalgia. Dada doodads abounded in the antique shops, but hey, what did we know? It was 81, maybe 82, so her hair was stratospheric, her dress lavender. My tux, the canary in the coal mine, were the biggest diamond in history, winked like a Bond girl from the scene. Thunderheads gnawed at the crust of the cheese pizza moon, dribbled lemonade down their knucklehead chins. My Buick too was yellow, combustible, fight or flighting, every reflector flashing along the two-lane. On the windshield, the grasshoppers sacrificed themselves with a satisfying splat. In the rear view glittered the dance hall, which was really a burning barn. Okay, this next one's called The Addictive Futility of Hope. And this one is one that the poem came first. And do you have that one? Looks like this.
We, no, we need to see it better than that.
So, did you have that one, Lorette?
We didn't get it yet.
Okay.
There we go. Got it
Okay.
now.
Now this one, the poem came first. The addictive futility of hope is what she calls her latest installation, which is mainly bees on leashes and fading plastic poppies. The best art is collaboration between people and nature, she says, like Smithson's spiral jetty or a tornado doing a tarantella with a barn. She steals the fake flowers from a cemetery out by the interstate, leaves pots of black-eyed Susans beneath the stones. She says that a stalk of wheat driven through a fence post by a twister tells us all we need to know about God. She says the membrane is permeable, but only in one direction. Every morning she catches bees in the field of wildflowers behind her house. Every evening she lets them go. She weeps when they sting her goodbye. She says the last song on every record is a forlorn buzzing, says just watching the shopping carts drift across the rain-slick asphalt can make her cry. She trembles sometimes when a lover touches her face, as if a storm means the drought is over, she says, as if touching leaves us any less alone, as if bees ever did anything but love us, as if their stings are nearly penance enough. All right. This next one's from a painting called Fairy Tales, and the poem is called Tinkerbell Gone Bad, and it has one naughty word in it because Tinkerbell's upset. All right. And I'm gonna say these Lorette's work just makes my brain explode and my heart explode. And it makes me want to tell these wild stories about what's going on, or, you know, the magic of all the things she collages together just creates these incredible stories in my mind. And this is one of them. It's called Tinkerbell Gone Bad. One thing I started to say, I asked Lorette if this was Miley Cyrus, because it really looks like Miley Cyrus, and we don't think so. But don't ever Google Miley Cyrus nude. That's just a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. Just kind of a PSA there. This is called Tinkerbell Gone Bad. God made me from Miley Cyrus's rib, deemed me winged, wicked. Lush, my pixie dust gets all the lost boys high. They fly like puppies, a frisky litter of fits and starts. Pheromones waft down from their loosey-goosey formations, pollinate my woods with mortality and adolescent funk. I am pink, punk, pouting, naked as a wrecking ball, nary a fuck to give. But then Pete leaves, and I descend into the real anguish of imaginary beings. Our Lady of the Butterflies, shepherdess of cherubim, my throne a toadstool, my ponytail flick the prick that once drew blood. I am tiny, but my heart is titanic, a sunken ship. I breaststroke its broken chambers, drink deep of its seething, its bitter pirate wine. Fairy light, effervescent, my floodgates unhinged, I let fly with a belch and giggle, a twisted husk of sob. My yearnings become my armor, but who will protect the world from me? Wendy is beyond my reach, my ken, so I murder Disney princesses with a glance, feed them to the ticking that talks in my noggin, sing Crocodile Rock as I pick my teeth with their bones. Petey, My pixie dust, it got you high, and now you're never coming down. But still I stare at the sky between the leaves. Still I sing these old time ditties, so we might find one another in our dreams. Second star to the right, my love. Straight on till morning. And that is it. Thank you.
These are just delightful. Thank you so much. I should have done this a long time ago. Our final feature, but not least, for today is Lorette Lusajic. You should be able to share because you already have been. Lorette Lusajic is an internationally collected artist, a writer, educator, and editor from Toronto, Canada. Her passion for art history is the thread running through all of her pursuits, including the Ekphrastic Review, a journal she founded devoted to writing inspired by art, and still one of the few journals out there that publishes ekphrastic work. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Robbie. And it's just such a privilege to read with Brent and Marjorie, who I admire both greatly and have worked with, as well as with Robbie. And to see all these friends here today and familiar faces, thank you so much. I'm going to share the screen, and that should work out okay. Do you all see these clouds? Okay. So most of my poems are prose poems or poetic short stories. That's kind of where I've been for many years, the kind of thing that I'm writing. And they're all ekphrastic, sometimes explicitly about the artwork or artist, and often not much to do with it at all, but just launching me in a completely different direction. And this first poem is called Cloud Water. Just before he knew he was sick, my father took me to a dinner theater in a barn to see the Christian Blackwood brothers do Elvis. The roast beast was blander than British, and the horseradish ran out before I got to the line. But the gospel according to Elvis raised the rafters. I'd never had a thing for this velvet-throated bird. His pout was pretty, but I never was convinced by all those sequins and spangles. Just didn't feel his soul in all of that. Turned out that was true, sort of. The pomade and the girls and the bright lights had their allure. But they say all the king really wanted to do was sing about the king. And when he did, all that was missing came together, his heart and his voice. All night, just him and his band when the hordes had gone home. A woman in the powder room mirror at intermission was fixing her lobster purple lipstick. She had Indian eyes, but her hair was so pale you could see through it. She was talking to a friend in a cubicle that I could only see by some pointy-toed boots peeping out and the jeans around her ankles. The disembodied voice from the toilet was saying something about Elvis, about how he once saw Stalin in the clouds before the apparition turned into Jesus. And the good Lord said, Elvis, behold, I come to you as living water, she was saying, and I could almost feel the rush of the rapture in the air with the flushing of the toilet. The sound was like a waterfall in Eden, in the small stalled walls. After my father closed his eyes for the last time, I came across the brochure for the barn show where we'd been. I pictured the bales of hay we rolled past on that blue and shiny day. The river tumbling under the clouds was a black ribbon between sky and earth, like the innards of a cassette tape slinging through fields and branches. In my memory, I could hear Elvis lowing sweetly from those clouds, saw Daddy ascending through the pickup truck to run towards him. Thank you. The second one is based on this Jackson Pollock painting, and also has little to do with the painting. It's called The Garden. This is a mother poem. The first one was a father poem. The clatter of birds, the scattered blooms. Blue is aching bright over the orchards, with handfuls of cellophane clouds close enough to touch. Here is what I will leave behind, a gaggle of gamboling ducklings, the claret rounds of shy strawberry wilds. The foxgloves and delphiniums are swaying sentries at the edge of the hill. Today there is the sting of fire from behind the apple trees, a truck bed loaf of a life smelting to ash. There are mountains more to behold to the flames, towers of refuse, dusty brochures and jelly jars, cardboard boxes, newspapers spanning 4 decades. Already the city dump has turned us away after too many trailers of muck and dross. The thrift stores too, finally, having kindly pushed back our bounty. Mother is sniffling and ruddy, wringing her hands and cursing us, even as we do all the work. She has not lifted a finger, of course, to sift through another box of rancid sundries with hopes for salvage. My sister is sorting a heap of rusty wheels and dead electronics for scrap and recycling, and her teenage son is in goggles and gloves, clearing through the 5th freezer. He holds up a bundle of unidentifiable carcass, reads out loud, best before December 1983. Mother has already hauled off 44 trailer loads into storage and a half dozen to her new house too. To his new life, my father took only a small suitcase and his Bible. I have not been here for years, and I will never be here again. We have come apart. We are dismantling, untangling, unraveling. The mounds will follow mother, spring up wherever she goes. No labor, no fire can erase her or annihilate her need and her rage. Her poison cannot be raised. Here is what I will take with me, the sweet trill of yellow summer warblers, the small triumph of that temporary demolition. Thank you. And the last piece is based on this mysterious Nebra sky disk, a very old and mysterious piece of art that we don't yet know much about. So this one is based more on the artwork itself. It's called The Night Detectives. The sky would still be buried, hidden away in the earth, if not for the men with their detectors and shovels. The metal detectives always digging up trouble. Among the Neolithic hills of Saxony, where the Black Forests circle ancient barrows, a cache of hatchets, swords and spirals, and a bronze plate hammered in Carpathian gold stars. Henry trembled in the darkness as his flashlight danced across the dazzling display. He had dug up a lot of soda cans and bottle caps in his day. A few nickels, old boots, buttons, toiling for treasures from time that always turned out to be from yesterday. But here was the ancient world he'd been prowling the night for, the whole damn thing, moon, sun, Pleiades flickering in his fingers like a magic spell. Mario dropped his hand tiller, retrieved it, took in a deep breath. Holy shit, man, he said. They were holding the earliest known depiction of the cosmos, a Bronze Age beauty, a disc UNESCO would later dub one of the most important archaeological finds of the 20th century. It would be sold on the black market, not the proper channels. The laws revile men who dig up the past where scholars can't be bothered. Such detectives toil by trowel in frozen backyards or streamside sites, finding the odd trinket and no glory. They do it for the story only of mankind, for puzzle pieces to the past and destiny. They will go to jail anyways, charged as looters when they finally find something the world wants. Later still, the disc will be redated 1,000 years into the future, unraveling all the hype created about the cosmically savvy on jets people and handing it back to the age of iron. The disc will be tried as an archaeological forgery. It will be part of a sting operation after changing hands for $2 million. But for now, in the still of the night, the portal to the past and future, only ancient constellations held in humbled hands. The silence is as vast as anything has ever been, and they listen for a moment to eternity echoing, as above, so below. Thank you so much.
That was so fabulous. I could just sit and sit here all day and experience these poems. Thank you so much for coming, and it's really delightful. Every month I say, oh, this one's better than all the rest. It's very strange how that's turning out. They're all wonderful, but this one's very special too. Well, our first open mic person is Victoria Toomey, and I know she's here because I let her in. So the open mic, it's 2 poems or 5 minutes, whichever comes first.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I am happy to say that I have a book that's going to be published. It's called Glimpse. I'm so excited. But anyway, so I'm going to read 2 poems from that book. It's going to take forever to get here, but that's okay. I did it. So anyway, all right. The first one is called Standing in the Presence of a Cornfield. Did you ever find yourself in the presence of a cornfield? Summer air cooling in shade of night. Feel the sky come closer as stars bloomed towards you from their glitter-strewn gardens. Somehow knew the tall stalks are speaking their own sign language, conversing about the urge to grow, and sense in between them a density within the slim darkness, something waiting and aware, inviting you to wade in and stand side by side by side among them, in the midst of their shiny silken threads, their husks and tassels, their honeyed floral scents, where you might raise your arms in imitation, feel utterly inhabited by certainty of purpose, be still and entire, alone but not apart, soaked through with what you are. Know that soon, without hesitation, you will all lean as one toward the face of the rising sun. And the second one is called Paradise. We were shopping for homes in the Paradise Estates, driving along the peaceful, perfect streets, identical roof peaks casting serrated shadows on unblemished driveways, bright green rectangular lawns, when we came upon the scene, an old man lying on his back behind a corner house, 2 men on their knees, one sweating, pressing his hands rhythmically against the old man's chest, the other breathing every few moments into his mouth. A young cop stood close by, hands on his hips, looking down. An old woman waited anxiously at a slight distance, searching the face of the officer for a clue, a magic trick, a miracle, one hand up to her mouth in fear, the other holding the old man's hat, as if he might rise at any moment and need it back, say, "I'm fine, you're being silly, dear," as if the officer in his blue uniform might flash his youthful smile and conclude in an official sort of way, "This has all been a big mistake. Here is your husband. We give him back to you, perfect, peaceful, immortal. And today, here is this poem rising up in my mind like a shrill cicada, buried for 17 years, awakened and flexing its timbals, the strange memory of a day long forgotten, driving through the utopian streets of paradise."
That was terrific. Thank you. We've started off our open mic very well. Our next reader is Mary McCarthy. And good luck on your book. Mary, are you still here? Okay, she was here
There
a
we
few
go.
minutes.
Here, I'm here. Can you
Okay,
see?
yeah,
Okay.
I can't
Okay.
see you.
You can't see me?
No,
Oh, wait a minute.
there you go.
Okay. These are just some of things I've been working on recently. This one's called COVID-19. It was in the emergency room that first year of COVID when I was sent there from the urgent care, struggling for air. In the flurry of attendants, the hiss of oxygen from the prongs of the nasal cannula, the surge of the alcohol bolus as they flushed my new IV, the pain of the needle in my artery pulling blood for gases, and my attention elsewhere, sorting through words for a new poem, chasing lines threatening to slip behind the masked and gloved crowd, so busy with cuffs and wires, sensors and alarms, fitting me out in a web of medical surveillance. When the doctor asked me if it came down to it, would I want him to intubate, knowing that was a last-ditch Hail Mary pitch and no guarantee I'd ever breathe free again. I knew I was a poet. Hearing his question, but more concerned with finding some scrap of paper big enough to save my lines, the words still tumbling unabashed in the center of my attention, greedy for the stage, the microphone, the time to stitch them all together so they made a shining sense more important than this medical rescue that circled and circled me, yet never came close enough to push aside the words I need even more than air. One second.
Whoa. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I had to drop it. I'm having trouble going through these pages.
It looked like you fell out of your chair.
Oh God, no falling. We did that last week. All right. Okay, we'll do this one. You promised you could always give me something to cry about. Find a space still unprotected, a door unlocked, a book in my hands instead of a broom or rag. Your rage exploding like lightning from a clear sky, so bright and hot, I curl into myself like a threatened armadillo, my armored skin a last-ditch defense when there was nowhere to run or hide, no way to block the burn of your voice, the weight of your fists, your belt snaking toward me like a tongue, a whip moving so fast it boomed like a jet faster than sound, too fast to catch with any words I found ground to a whisper under your outrage, your anger and annihilation like the weight of God. Even now in different rooms, I cower at the threat of a raised voice, the sound of anger rising, still unspent, even though no arm is raised, no fists clenched, nothing but that fury in a living voice, my sad inheritance, those moments etched like acid on my skin, a net of fire, a web of pain, still holding me defeated in my place. Thank you.
Wonderful. It's good to hear this again. Elaine Nadel, are you here?
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elaine Nadal, and I'll be sharing two poems with you guys. The first one's called Chariot. I'm going to ride the sun chariot across the sky with my woes y mi canto de sueños y esperanza. I've got the horses ready. I'll tell them where to go. I'll show them the path that leads to ambrosia. I'm going to ride with duende y corazón pierced by bow and arrow. I'm going to ride with thunderbolts in my fingertips, brokenness in my pocket, and wanderlust in my eyes. I'll fix what is broken. I'll break what I fix. If I fall adrift, I shall not dismiss the journey I seek to peak in excavating mystery. Like an Andean condor above the mountains, I'm going to ride the sun chariot across the sky. I won't stop shouting the things the gatekeeper would like under lock and key. There are no cliches or senseless dreams when it comes to challenging the swindling of freedoms and dignity. No, I won't stop shouting. And restlessness cannot be tucked in while the status quo replaces hope with complacency. I'm going to ride the sun chariot across the sky. I've packed a piece of oak and a handful of owl feathers. The clouds feast. They'll part like the Red Sea. The rays cradle my fears, sow them into grape seeds. My mother tongue sprouts, stretches this tough skin, and scatters the sunlight to make a pathway of pink flowers across the sky. I'm going to ride the sun chariot, offering the fire, the flame, the indomitable spirit, risking and giving my all till my eyes are no more and I become undone. And the next poem is called More. I want a poet kind of love, carefully crafted, one that keeps falling, a love committed, ardent and feverish, to find and unveil, to drape in symbolism. I want a poet kind of love, frustrated and eager to give a heart with its trinkets and treasures, afflictions and pleasures, one that bleeds for growth and sows seeds, that sinks to uplift and won't let go of the pen, of the words that come like a perennial stillness or ephemeral enchantment. A poet kind of love, in free verse or iambic pentameter, an ode for finding completion in the act of never really completing, for the captured moment, regardless of how dreadful, because someone is there to share it with. And the moon and the stars are not enough, and the flowers and trees are not enough. The overwhelming feeling, the impetus to embrace that kind of love that aligns and weaves metaphors and similes, that grips and grapples for continuity, a flow, a progression of more stanzas yet to be written. Thank you, guys.
Our next person up at the open mic is Wendy Van de Kamp.
And I think that took care of the microphone. Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Van Kamp. I'm the poet laureate of the city of Anaheim, California, and I am what is known as a speculative poet. I brought 2 poems to read today. The first one was published in
Get
this.
out of the Zoom.
Huh?
Before it had leave meeting,
Can
but
you
now
hear me?
it doesn't have leave meeting on there.
Oh, okay. Anyway, my first one is going to be from the Starlight Sci-Fi Coup Review. It's called Close Approach, and it was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. The poem was inspired by a photo that was sent back from Curiosity on Mars that showed the night sky full of galaxies. But anyway, here we go. Journey through darkness. We are joined with industry. Legacy is saved. Dodge radiation. Humans reach for God of War. Take the close approach. Falling in thin air. Breathless anticipation. Regolith awaits. Rainbow galaxies compete with the stars above me. Mars is now my home. And that was that one. The other one is one that I published thank you guys. I published many years ago, back in 2018 in a magazine called Lit Up, which is on Medium. And it was inspired by the legend of Cassandra from Greek myth. Excuse me, let me get my glasses out of the way because the print on this one's a little smaller. In the morning, your ship will be sailing, prepared by your father to whisk you safe. Watch the Silicon City understanding as the people flee the enemy in haste. Now that the last bloody day is dawning, you suffer your secrets within your heart, for none would listen to words of warning. Oh, Cassandra, it is time to depart. Into the fair skies you rocket up, away from the death you have foreseen. In orbit, solar sails prepare to cup waves of photon energy by machine. Sorry, Cassandra, we did not believe. We only saw it as dreams you would weave. And thank you, everyone. That's it.
Thank you. This is one of those rare readings for everyone who signed up for the open mic show. So our next reader is Mark Petrie.
Thank you, everybody. I've actually changed what I'm going to read today because of the extract poems that were just so frigging amazing. This is a poem from my 1997 book, Then All Goes Blue, and it's a poem called Woman, and it's from the de Kooning painting, Woman 1. I am lost in the department store. Mother has hold of my hand. Now I am standing by an escalator, waiting for her to step off. The whole place is so large. I am lost in a cavern light cannot enter. I hate to be alone and lost. First I feel alone and then I feel lost. It would be nice to get to the other side of the escalator, where I feel alone and found. I can't see. I can't walk up the down escalator. I can't find my mother either coming or going. A woman looks down at me. Whose little boy are you? She asks. I'm no one's little boy, I say. I'm 42 years old. I look at her. Her hair is in place. Her teeth are capped. Her blue shoes contrast her orange hat. She is a fashionable lady. My comments make her hush. And furthermore, I say, you may be a fashionable lady, but you should wear your brassiere inside your blouse. She stands there shocked. She lowers her head. The cream blouse underneath accentuates the lace rosettes on her adobe white bra. Excuse me, she says. I must go arrange my apparel. Thank you so kindly. I hope your mother finds you wherever you may go. Then she walks away to the ladies' lounge on the other side of the shoe department. I decide to wait no longer. The floor is dripping. The noose on the wall is tightening into a cocoon. I make my way to the parking structure and swallow the gaudy gold green moon. And yeah, I love ekphrastic. So I was at a reading where Gary Snyder was honored this week. I hope some of you guys were there. If not, I hope you take the time to watch the tape. It was frigging amazing. Governor Brown was there, Robert Haas, Jane Hirschfield, amazing reading. But I obviously love Gary Snyder. So this is sort of a poem I wrote. And I guess to me, sometimes I like to create my own painting. And this is one where I'm creating a painting. And it's called Laguna Beach Dharma. A broken kelp bulb, luminous on the sand, absorbs shimmering sea light, ocean's reflections. Silver droplets of light intermingle with aquamarine tones, spread into a white glow to the far horizon. I give myself to the sea today. The sand, the water, the waves, the bracing cold of March. The power of the planet carries me to shore in the curl of a wave. I find my way up the beach with nothing to show for my effort. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Our next reader is Hetty Hopper.
Hi, Rabbi. Hi, everyone. I'll be reading a couple of poems, The Ages of Women and Age of Men.
Do you need to share any screens?
No, I won't, because those poems were published without the artwork that inspired them. And they're from my 2015 Under Brushstrokes collection. The reason I chose these poems is because in some ways they're meditations that are sort of a reflection of my mood after 3 years of isolation and undergoing different sorts of losses. So the first one is The Ages of Women. The three-way mirror refuses to reflect her tattered dress, the withered flower falling from her startled hand as she sees the bride she once was, seated on the throne of youth, as in a centerfold holding a lily, erect like a scepter in her right hand, the other grasping a bouquet over her lap, unaware of crossing oceans of time about to overflow, their white-crested waves already reaching the commode where the circular clock stopped ticking. And the left and right panes of the mirror remain blank as past and future merge. There is no reflection of the old woman's tired self, her thinning hair. She gazes at the image facing her with a doe's frightened stare, feels sorry for the girl seated on the throne of youth, smiles at her own knotted hands and swollen veins that tell stories the girl cannot understand. She has so much to say, she thinks, notices the fallen hour hand nearby. She has time till waters rise up to her knees. Soon they will all disappear in the storytelling. The old woman could leave the room, restart the clock, stop the illusion, but it's her chance to speak to a captive audience, to say goodbye. And the next poem is titled The Ages of Men. She lives with a man she now softly calls a living dead. Fingers covering her lips like a feathered fan, she barely proffers these words. Feels trapped, yes, as walls shrink around her, getting closer each day. She who never had children is nursing her no longer lover, always by his side, rubbing his failing limbs, calming his speeding pulse. He has aged so much after his illness, she thinks, watches how his skin fails to wrap the bones, hanging in places like the folds of a handed-down garment. He suddenly awakens at night, anguished, fears the Sandman, needs to lie next to her and hold her hand. She dreams of opening the door wide open, of stepping out to the light, to an uninterrupted sleep. Thank you.
Thank you, Hetty. Gary Grossman is our next person at the open mic.
Can everybody hear me okay? All right. This first poem is a prose poem and it has the F-bomb in it a couple times. So if that offends you, please turn your sound off. And I don't really know that this is true, but I imagine prose poems are read kind of like a monologue. And so that's what I'm going to do. So this is called a semi-unpunctuated short novel in 337 words. Passing the big Ingalls Market, I speed through the last intersection in Baldwin and crest the ridge holding up the south end of town. only to find the undulating Piedmont hills laid out before me. Visibility at least 27 miles, odd for July, with its shower curtain humidity. Even though white and red oaks do their best sets of push-ups, exhaling oxygen, while loblolly and shortleaf pines comp us with chasers of pinene, the real deal, not that fake Christmas tree hanging from your rearview mirror. And I'm gobsmacked by the immensity and continuity of this robust green landscape, distant from the ocean, yet looking like nothing so much as a horizon-long set of large rollers from a mid-Atlantic storm. So many shades of yellow-green, green-green, and blue-green, colors ebbing and flooding with the breeze, like some window shade that you pull down but keeps rolling itself up. And I should really pull over and suck it all in like a long toke on a joint. Let this immensity fill my lungs and seep into iron red arterial blood for a lap or two around my body. But this is where the 8-mile stretch of 45 ends, and we're back up to 65 within 2/3 of a high school football field. And my wife and daughter are accustomed to my speeding. Not too fast, mind you, just the 6 or 7 miles per hour of lagniappe the troopers give you. And Georgia 441 takes speed so well, as long as you slow up on the unbanked S's just north of Homer, where you have to drop down to 60 if there's traffic. But if no one's on your right, you can slalom across the lanes, drifting like Mario Andretti at the Grand Prix of Monaco, windows down and brown hair flapping. And that image of big oceanic waves stays with me all the way to Athens as I inhale the lusciousness of new sourwood flowers and drop down to 62 at the Clark County 55 sign, while neurons lodge this second, this minute, this hour in my every smiling cell. And in an odd double synchronicity, I'm going to read another poem about clouds. The first synchronicity was because Lorette's first painting was about clouds. And the other one will be a little bit of a surprise. So this is called Well-Developed Cumulus Clouds, Clark County, Georgia. 2 p.m. on July 10th. The sun broils every outbreath, but this pampered afternoon, the sky is strewn with cumulus clouds. Neither alto cumulus nor strato cumulus, just plain old cumulus dough balls pushing through the glassy troposphere. Climatologists call them well-developed, and these were precisely set by Odin or Yahweh because only a god could distribute these clouds so evenly, like a new chessboard or the Spanish Armada, sails full and tacking up the French coast. This is not some random artifact, but cyan sky and cotton clouds, painted by Van Gogh on a morn when he knew fact from fancy. But still they puzzle, each separate, yet linked like a burlap mesh knit from intention. But meaning eludes. Are they failing marriages, fully charged and about to bolt? Are they residual lacy valentines from Miss Schaefer's 5th grade class? I pined for one from Kathy Van Camp. Or are they merely my brain yearning for pattern and order in this increasingly anxious and chaotic world? Sorry, I guess that didn't have the F-bomb in it. I'm losing my touch.
That's fine with me. Okay, thanks very much. Our last two folks, I'm going to have to ask you to read just one poem each because we're kind of running over here. Kate Wagerson asked to read. So if you could please read one fairly short poem, that would be great.
Thank you so much. I will. I'll just break it down in half. Name echoes refrain. Off the cliffs, eyes cast to the ocean, scallop shell traverses along Camino de Santiago. Clamshell cracked open on the chest of the otter, naturally clever, floating on its back to dine. Sea of Cortez harvests food from spiny oyster, since prehistory a shell adorned for spiritual significance, found as red, orange, the rarest in purple, Delphina, Greek for dolphin, the womb of the ocean. Ostara on her Grecian islands, the hare her totem, protectress of creatures great and small, spring abundancia, bird's nests, spring array, filled with colorful eggs, adornment of all traversing every view. Names echo refrain, naming sparks kindness across earth waters. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please come back another time. Okay, our last reader who is going to share her ekphrastic work today is all the way from Greece, Alexandra Sarapoulou.
Hello, this is the shortest poem I've got, Robbie.
Okay.
Flying 2 from the Flying series. The flying is high, the flying is high, the flying is the highest. It lasts forever. Take me on the turquoise horse, over the hayfields, into the sun, forever. High mountains flying right, no crash landing. Deep ravines, rivers flowing, eagles above, taking me on the turquoise horse. Love, freedom, poetry. If you can accept the windings of my mind, if you can trust the reality of my fantasy, living in the strange wonders and genuine pleasures of this world and other worlds, living where fantasy and reality merge, following the intuition and the intuitions of the past, following the invisible and the visible, lying by the sea under the olive tree, open and ready, it's all changing. Don't think hard of the ghosts of the past, where energy is rewarded, where life gives it all. At 14 and 16, they prepared me for you, taking me on the turquoise horse, over the wild flowers, into the wind and fire. Forever, the flying is high, the flying is high, the flying is the highest. It is absolute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be hosting another reading on Tuesday, the spoken word reading featuring Charlotte Innes, the wonderful poet Charlotte Innes. And I've put the link in the chat, and I'll put it in again so that you can register. That'll take you to the link to the invitation where you can register for Tuesday at 1:00 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks all of you for coming today. This was a wonderful reading, and I'll be getting the recording and posting it, or Jim will be posting it on the Verse Virtual page and on the YouTube page. So I'll just stop the recording and people can talk to each other a little bit, and then we'll adjourn.